Hello, and welcome. It is Wednesday, April the 16th, and we are going to be doing some lettering and painting together for a Holy Week project. My name is Crystal Whitten. If this is the first time you're watching me, I do all things lettering and faith-based, and I am so excited that you have found me here today. So we are going to use a template and we are going to do a painted background. So when you come on, say hello first. Tell me where you're from and what you're doing. Tell me what your plans are for the weekend for Easter. And I'm going to show you here a project that I did a couple weeks ago. Hey, Roxy, how are you? A couple weeks ago, I hand lettered this, and this is a smaller version of kind of what we're going to be doing today, but it's on a canvas panel. So this was the 7x9 size. And so you can see it is also a Easter themed or really resurrection themed piece of artwork that we did. Hey, Glinda, I almost said good morning, but it's afternoon. It's afternoon for me, at least. Maybe not quite for you yet, but anyway, so this was a piece that we did a few weeks ago, and it is just a plain yellow background with some white brush strokes over it to give it some texture. And then we used a template to transfer the lettering and paint that in. So we're going to do something similar today, but I have a larger one. So we're going to do a larger scale project. The one I have today is this size, which I believe is a 9x11, maybe. Okay, because whenever I put, it doesn't say it on the back like the other one does. So when I put an 8.5x11 piece of paper on here, I'd say that it's probably right at about 9, maybe 9x12. That's what I think the size is. So this is the template we're going to use. It is finished. It is inside the Scripted Faith Collective already. So if you're in the collective, if you're a subscriber, you can go grab this, print it off, and you can create alongside of me today. You can scale it down or scale it up if you have something larger or smaller that you want to do it on. So, all right, you ready to go? I have kind of a cool technique I want to do with you today. I've done this before on my cards, some of my greeting cards and truth cards and things like that I have sold in the shop. But I did that on my iPad. And so I haven't actually done this technique with paint in a really long time. And I thought it would be so fun. So let me show you what I'm talking about. Here's a couple of the greeting cards that I've done. And do you see this abstract background? It's colorful and fun, and it just gives it a little bit more, I don't know, interest or variation to the background instead of just a plain color. Because when I was thinking about this project, I thought, well, I could just do maybe like an all black background even, because it says it is finished, and that's a very like sobering when we think about Friday, Good Friday. I always tell my family, Good Friday and Black Friday need to be reversed, right? Like the names of those need to be reversed, because Black Friday is a good day because we get sales and shopping. And so that really should be like Good Friday, right? And then Black Friday, like when Jesus was put on the cross, like I would consider that a Black Friday, right? Like not a good day. But anyway, when my kids and I were talking about the differences between those two. So I thought about doing the background all black with white lettering, but you know what? With spring and Easter, yes, I know I'm going to be all mixed up in what it's called. Good Friday is a sobering day of thinking about Jesus's death, But we know that we have the hope, right? Because we're on this side of the cross where we know that we have the hope of the resurrection coming. And so I really wanted to do more colorful, more of a colorful background for this. So I pulled these out to show you some ideas that maybe you could even do. So this one is just a bunch of different colors, and it's just kind of like paint swabs on there, you know? And so we could either do something like this, or I have these that are a little bit more monochromatic. We have a greenish one and then a more of a bluish one. And those are both like very calming, pretty, but you can still see hopefully that the backgrounds, there's just some movement and some texture going on in there, and there's really no rhyme or reason to it, and it's really easy to recreate that kind of look with paint. You just have to be careful not to mix the paints too much. They need to kind of lay on top of each other. So we're going to be doing that today, and I'm really leaning more into the colorful one, the bright colorful one. So I don't know. What would you do? Which do you have a preference for that? Let's make sure my phone is on silent and do not disturb. So, because it seems like people always want to call me when I'm live. Okay. So here's the colors that I've got here today. I've got a few other behind me, but I grabbed these. Hey, Mary. Hey, Carol. I grabbed this pretty, it's called New Leaf Green. It's kind of a yellowish green. And then I have a drift teal or aqua. This is more of a teal. It's called turquoise. And then I have Calypso Sky. So, and then a pink, Podge Pink. These are all the folk art. I just grabbed a bunch of bright colors at the store recently that I thought would be really pretty together. And then, of course, I have some white so that we can lighten up some of those colors. But, okay, so here's our plain background. You know, it's a canvas panel, so it's a little bit textured on there. So I'm seeing yellow and orange, monochromatic. Roxy likes the monochromatic. I get that. I'm gonna go with the bright colored one. We're just gonna see how that goes. And obviously we can always paint over it later if, you know, it doesn't turn out as expected. So I've got some paper plates here that I've used before. I think that a dark stained background would be so pretty if you had a dark piece of wood or something like that. That would be awesome. I still have not made it to Hobby Lobby to get some wood backgrounds to do some stuff on, but that's on my list to do some different type projects with y'all like that. So that would be fun. I love a good wooden stained background. It's just classic and kind of goes with everything, you know, whatever. Okay, so here we go. I'm just going to put some paint on here. Did not grab a clean paper plate. Use what we got. Hey, Tanya. I love this green. Oh my goodness. That is a cool color. It's like chartreuse, maybe. It's pretty. Probably need more pink than that. Okay, and then our white. And I've got some other colors back here, but let's see what we can do with just these. So the more color, the better when it comes to me. But actually, you know, my house is not decorated like that. I feel like my art is more like that, where I love really colorful art. But my house, I definitely have fallen into that more monochromatic, like beige, not beige. I haven't really gotten into the beige, but I've gotten in more to the gray, like a while back. They say that gray is going out now. Um, so I've got kind of like beigey grays and whites and all of that. And it's pretty, but I have recently started to like try to bring in a little bit more color to the decor and just like I don't know because I think I personally love color. So I don't know why my house doesn't reflect that. I guess I feel like I've kind of like wandered into the Pinterest trap of like, well, what everybody else is doing. So I have here and there started to try to add more. Yes, like turquoises and teals. I love those. I don't think my husband would love it too much if I was like putting pink everywhere like I really want to, but all right. We ready? I've got a bunch of different brushes. I just brought up a bunch of sizes so that we could have a variety. These are cheap brushes. Okay, don't spend a lot on brushes. This is like the chip brush where you can get a nice, like kind of that faded rustic look. And then obviously we're going to go a little bit heavier with some of these other ones. So let's start with just the, let's start with the teal, the turquoise. Actually, that was the color, it was a turquoise. Okay. And so we're just gonna do splotches on here. And I'm gonna try not to go too thick because I don't want it to take forever to dry. I want to be able to layer the paints, but have them kind of dry enough in between that they're not going to mix together. We don't want them becoming like a muddy mess. So I'm not covering everything, as you can see, but this is just no rhyme or reason. No rhyme or reason. And some of you may be like, oh, I hate that. I hate that. I want you to give me specific rules. Who is like, give me specific rules? I want to know step by step, 1, 2, 3, each thing. And then who is, I like the creative freedom. I'm just curious. Because depending on what it is, sometimes I like creative freedom and sometimes I just want you to tell me exactly the step by step. And I don't want to have to think about it, But really with this sort of technique, you do not have to think about it too much. Don't overthink it. So let me dry this so that it can at least be dry enough that it's not going to move around too much. Hey, Doris. Yes, creative freedom. Carol, I like watching you be creative. All right. There's this one little spot that seems shiny, but... All right, next color, I think we're going to do the blue. So I cleaned off my brush and I'm going to stick with this big wide brush for now to get as much coverage as we can. So I'm getting it in the paint, but then I'm also kind of trying to wipe it off because I don't want too much on there. And now I'm going to go in between the green, or can't call it the right color, the turquoise, and fill in some of those white spots. I've got my little background here, and I should have brought up some paper or something to put underneath because I really don't want to get paint all over this background. It's one of those photography backgrounds where you can take product photos and it's cool looking. It's like kind of a concrete look, but I don't want to get paint all over it. What I need to do is get a board up here that I can just always paint on and not worry about. So just move my paper towel around just a little bit or hold it up. All right. So when you feel like you've got a good balance of color, and it doesn't even have to be fully, like you can kind of see through spots. But when you feel like you've got a good balance of color, then you can move on to the next color. So I just want to hit these edges a little bit. So I don't know if you saw my stories from yesterday, but I am playing nurse right now. Do we have any nurses in here? I got to say, I admire you if that is your job, because I don't know that I was really cut out to be a nurse. Look at my brush. Can you see that it's like, can you see the hairs on it? Yeah. This brush hasn't been taken care of. So my husband had surgery yesterday on his shoulder. He had a shoulder injury, and he injured it back in February. So he's known about, he's going to have surgery. He's trying to find a good date, that works sort of with your schedule. And he picked this week, which is kind of weird because I don't know that he'll even be able to go to church for Easter, but it's what worked out best with some of the other things in our lives. And so, this is his third shoulder surgery, but this one, I don't know. He's older, obviously, than the first two. So, I'm here. I'm being the nurse and trying to help him. You just don't think about how much you use both of your arms until you can't use one of your arms, right? It's like all the littlest things. So I'm like cutting up his food for him and, just whatever, trying to help him with the ice packs and all of that. So yesterday was all about that. And today is kind of all about that. But I snuck away for an hour. He's actually on a call downstairs. So he didn't mind that I was going to come up here and do this. But I will just say, nursing is not for the faint of heart. And, if you're a mom or have ever cared for someone, but it's definitely a kind of a sacrificial thing. So I love him and I want him to feel better soon. So, okay, pink. Let's go in with the pink. All right. So I really kind of feel like maybe I should save pink for last. Now that I'm thinking about, let's put a pin in that, pause, and then let me get a different brush and we're going to do, so this one's a little bit thinner. And so let's do this lighter turquoise teal. I can't remember what the color was called. And then let's go ahead, since these little spots now are smaller, we'll fill that in. There we go. That's kind of a thick blob. And, I don't mind it mixing a little bit. Like if you go and you kind of see the color sort of like mix a little bit, that's not bad. You just don't want to like sit there and like brush back and forth in one spot. And so then the colors completely mix and then become really muddied and everything. That's the look that you're really kind of trying to avoid. So, okay, let me come up here, get some of the edges. All right. I'm already loving it. So, and you can kind of, I don't know if you can see with the glare, but some of the smudging there kind of mixed in with some of the darker color, but I like it. So now we're kind of getting to the point where we've got most of the board covered up. So I'm going to dry it again just a little bit. And here, there's a lot of this one color. Let's see if I can change my light around so maybe it's not as, maybe not as much of a glare on it, but I don't know if that didn't really change anything. Okay, so you can tell though that we've got a bunch of this light color right there. So I'm actually going to just dab off a little bit of that light teal and then go back to that Calypso blue and then just put in a little bit of the Calypso blue right there just to break that up. So it's not all like a huge blob of one color. Carol, thank you for saying that you'll pray for his healing. So yes, it's like one of those surgeries that, you know, you're not just going to be back to normal next week. You're going to have to go to rehab and he can't drive for a little bit. And, you know, it just kind of is one of those things where it upends your life for a short bit. Whereas I've had multiple surgeries, but my surgeries have all been pretty, like you get right back to it the next day, you know, like, or not the next day, but like within a week, you're back to normal and everything's fine. And goodness, the rehab on this one, I think might be tough and it's going to be months. So he's just hoping that he's back like good to go for the fall baseball season, to be honest, for my son. So, okay. Okay. I keep talking. I should be doing this while I'm talking. So, oh my goodness, Raina, I'm sorry. It is hard. But we love them, so we do it. Okay, so what are y'all's Easter plans? Share in the comments if you are going to see family or if you've got family coming to see you. Are you going to church? Does your church have Saturday night service? This is the thing. My church is not doing Saturday night service this year, but I'm seeing that more and more, I feel like. Or sunrise service. Let me tell you, it's hard to get there, but our church does a 7:00 sunrise service, and we have gone the last 2 years, and it is so awesome. I love it. It's just really sweet. It's usually kind of a more pared down, you know, there's not a choir and an orchestra and all of that. It's just usually a couple people with guitars and then you're sitting there and the sun is coming up and it's just beautiful because you think about, you know, the Gospels telling about how the women went to visit Jesus in the tomb so that they can better prepare his body for burial. And it was early in the morning and the sun was just starting to come up. And so you kind of like put yourself there, you know, and thinking about it. And I don't know, it's really special, but it is hard to get there. And if you've never been to a sunrise service, but you're planning on doing one this year, bring a blanket or a towel, because it tends to be a little bit wet from the dew or a little bit chilly. So, a Good Friday service is always so good too. Yes. All right, let's go in with the pink. Are you ready for this? It's going to be a pop. So I don't maybe want to do as much. Like I don't want to go crazy with it maybe, but I love this color so much. Whoops. Did you see that? It just flew off my brush. So that's going to be a spot that we do right there. The edges, just kind of keep it balanced. I like it that it's just like a swash. You know, you have like that real imperfect, like that. See how that is? And see how it's like a little blobbed right there? And then it's, uh, what's the word? Like, what's the word? You know how it's just like less on the end there. I love that. I like that look. So, okay, let's do a little bit right here. Easter egg hunts. Oh my goodness. Yes, I love an Easter egg hunt so much. There's a picture of me and my dad, and I was probably 2 years old, and he's like walking with me, holding my hand, and I've got the little Easter basket. And so I've always loved like good old family Easter egg hunts and stuff like that. My kids, honestly, I don't feel like you're ever too old for an Easter egg hunt, you know? Um, even as an adult, I love it. And one year, my mother-in-law had all the adults. She did a kid one, and then she did an adult one, and she put money in the eggs, and we had to hide them for each other. So we split up into teams as couples, and we hid them for each other. Everybody had a certain color that they had to look for, and so we hit them real hard. And there was a couple that were never found. Like I think one ended up in a tailpipe of a car or something like that and was found later. But that was so much fun. I just don't feel like you ever get too old for an egg hunt. So the kids have fun, but so do the adults, right? Okay, now let's do the chartreuse. And I mean, I'm trying with this paper towel, but I'm not doing a great job because the paint is definitely getting on my board. Hopefully I can clean it off later. All right. This is coming off a little bit more yellow than I was expecting. I was kind of thinking it might be a little bit more of like have a little bit more of that green in it. It's a really pretty color, but against the blue, it's definitely looking more yellowish. It's a good accent color though. I will say that this particular style right now, there's like nothing in my house that looks like this. So it would really stand out if I put it, you know, in the family room or something like that. Okay. So like take a step back and kind of look back and see like, okay, does it look balanced? Is there anything else that we want to add in there? And I still have a good bit of white space. So what I want to do is I think I want to take the lighter colors and cover up some of that white space. So like really cover up the white canvas panel. So let me rinse my brush. I'm gonna switch brushes actually to one a little bit smaller. And this is like a real thick, dense brush too. So let's pick up a little bit more of that Calypso blue there. We could do this with some white too, but I have a different idea for the white. Get the edges. And it's okay if you cover up, you know, some of the other color. I kind of like how this one looks up here. It's hard to tell from a distance, but can y'all see how that looks? How there's a little bit of the white peeking through, but I kind of like how the colors have mixed together. We'll just go right next to it. Okay, I think it's good. All right, let's just do a little bit more teal. A little teal in here. And if you feel like you're making a mistake, take a step back and look at it, or, you know, walk away for a minute and look at it and you'll come back and be like, I don't even see that mistake anymore, because it just all kind of blends. Unless you just got one big blob, then that might be noticeable. But what do we need? I like it. Do a little bit more blue here. Now we're going to do our lettering on top of this. So we want to make sure that it's good and dry. I feel like it needs one more color almost. Let's see, what do I have? I have a green, but it's not a bright green. It's that clover green that we used in the workshop. I don't know how that would work. It's a little dark. Let's see. And then I have this wasabi green. Again, I feel like it's not bright enough. It needs to be like a brighter green. But you know what we could do is we could add a little bit of white. Let's add a little bit of white to this yellowish green and just give it a little bit of a, I'll show you. I'm going to mix a little bit of this with a little bit of this. And I don't know if it's going to give it a big difference, but maybe just a little bit. A little bit. It definitely makes it look more like a mustardy yellow. Just little ones. Just like little accents. Okay. And you could sit here and you could probably pick at that forever, but I'm going to stop. I'm going to force myself to stop because I think it'd be fun to keep going. Get it good and dry. So if you have joined us since we started, we're kind of recreating this look. This is a greeting card that I made, and I actually did all of the background on the iPad, but you can see it this way. It has those little blobs, and so I wanted to recreate that kind of look and background with our paint today. So that was my inspiration. I have a whole set of greeting cards that I did that were just sort of like fun and bright, and they were all different colors. And but we have to make sure that this is really good and dry because we're going to be laying down our graphite paper and then pressing on it. And, I don't want to transfer graphite paper where it doesn't need to be. So I love seeing y'all's plans, like what your church does and all that for Easter. Okay. I get impatient when you're watching. Get impatient. Just want to move on to the next step. Okay, so here I'm going to show you straight on. It's really colorful. Almost like, woo, almost like I don't want to say cartoonish, but the pink and the yellow really do pop. And so if you don't really like that kind of color, you could keep it more monochromatic, where you could just stick with different greens or different blues, and make it more of a calming, effect. So, and like I said, I could sit here and pick at this forever, and I might go back in and like cover up some of that and try to like make it a little bit more subdued, if I was just playing around with it for myself. But I would like to go ahead and start tracing. So here's our graphite paper. If you've never seen this process before, There's the shiny side and then the dull side. It's a little bit more gray. And so you're going to lay it down on top of your panel with the shiny, darker side down. And that's what's going to transfer. And y'all, listen, this could be a total disaster because I know that this paint is not all the way dry, but the show must go on. Just kidding. Okay, so we're going to just center. I'm eyeballing it there. And then I've got a little bit of painter's tape to tape it down. There. Look, I have paint all over me. So let's say a prayer that it just transfers where it needs to transfer and no more. I'm going to go ahead and do a little bit of tape on the sides. Hey, Teresa. Just a little bit on the edges so that when we pick it up to kind of check it and see if it's going, and then you lay it back down, it could shift left or right a little bit. And I want to make sure that I don't mess it up when I do that. So we're going to go on each side just enough so that we can still take a peek and make sure that it's transferring correctly, and make sure it goes back exactly where it should be. So this obviously is a crown of thorns. So let's start with the outside and just go around. I don't know how hard I should be pressing right now. So I'm going to pull it up here and check it. Hold on. It is a little still wet. You can see the paint there, but look, it's transferring nicely. So that's good, because some paints for some reason have a little trouble with the transfer. So we're just going to go in and transfer all of that. When we were in Israel, so I was in Israel 2 years ago, almost 3 years ago. And it was a wonderful experience. Has anybody been able to visit the Holy Lands? Or is that on your bucket list to do one day? My father-in-law had another trip planned for last year. No, hold on. My dates are all out of whack. He was going to go 2 years ago. So we went 3 years ago. I went on a trip with my church. My father-in-law was the pastor at the time. He's retired now. And he took a group, and it was wonderful. So amazing. And he was going to go again the next year, but then, all the stuff happened over there. And so he's been waiting to kind of find out from some of his other pastor friends, are you taking groups now? So Tanya, you went in March 23, so that's awesome. And, sometimes people feel like, oh, I don't know if it's going to be safe or not. Here I am talking, and I have no idea which thorns I have transferred and which ones I have not. So, okay, well, I got to focus. But one thing we saw, we were on the Mount of Olives, and it was just incredible. I'll tell you, it was incredible. If you ever have the opportunity to go, take the opportunity, because what a blessing. What a blessing. But there were these trees. There was some sort of church up there on top of the Mount of Olives. And we actually got to walk the path of the triumphal entry. I mean, as best as they know. They said these streets have been here, and maybe they have been cobbled. It was kind of like cobblestone. And there were some walls and sides because people would also drive these roads, but we were able to walk down, and our guide told us that this would have been the path or similar, close to the path that Jesus would have ridden on the donkey down the Mount of Olives and then into the city of Jerusalem for the triumphal entry when they laid down the palm branches and all of that. So cool. And so we were walking down, and there was this church, and next to the church were these trees. And he pointed out that the trees had these really thick, big, long thorns, huge thorns on them, like at least this big. And, he said it would have been a tree like this that they would have fashioned the crown of thorns from. So I took a picture of it. It was, something I wanted to remember. And it's kind of hard to tell in the picture what the thorn, where the thorns are, what they look like. But if you look really closely, you can see them, and they are huge. And so you think like, wow, that would have really hurt, would really, really hurt. So we remember that this week as we are in Holy Week and all that Jesus had to bear. Hold on. I'm going to take my tape off. Let's take this side off so that I can check it. I want to see which thorns I got and didn't get. It's pretty good. If I've missed anything or if we feel like we need to fill it in, we can. So it did transfer a little bit up here onto the paint, but I can just go back over that when we're done to cover up the black smudging. And a few other places have some smudging where it wasn't dry yet. So that's something I can fix after we're done. But okay, let's do the lettering and then we can be done with the graphite paper. So the other really cool thing was on that trip, when we got down to the base of the Mount of Olives, that is where the Garden of Gethsemane is. And there's a big church there. You'll see that there's all different churches built at these holy sites. A lot of them are Catholic. I think there's also, what's the other one? Can't think on the spot. But you can go inside and sit in the church. And it was beautiful. The churches are beautiful, but I was like, I don't want to go in there. I want to, be out here in the garden. And so there's all these olive trees. And there's this big giant olive tree that they said was really old. They said that it could have been a little baby tree at the time of Jesus. So like a 2,000-year-old tree sounds pretty crazy, but it's protected in there. And then our group got to go into this little private garden area. And here, keep in mind, like the Garden of Gethsemane is right next to this really busy road, like right outside the city walls. And so you're hearing buses and cars and honking and, traffic noises. And you're sitting here in the Garden of Gethsemane, like taking it all in, It was amazing. And so then we left out of the garden. We had a little devotional in there. And then we had some time to each kind of go to different corners of the garden and pray. And then we left out of there to get back on our bus. And you can see the Temple Mount right across this busy road. And at the base of it is the Kidron Valley. And hold on, pause my story. Okay. Good enough. It's good enough I can see to do the lettering. Okay. So you can see a few little spots got a little bit messed up. They weren't quite done drying, so it's okay. I'm going to wait for it to dry completely. It'll probably be when we're done, but I'll go back in and fix that so you won't even see that anymore. But okay, so there's the template and then there's the drawing. So some of it's a little faint, and I do think that I might have missed a couple spots, but we'll just freehand those in. Okay, so I've got white or black. White or black. What do you think? I kind of want to do white. Okay, let's do white. Let's do white. Okay, so hold on. There's a question. Lucille says, how do we know what side of the pen you use that comes with the carbon paper? Oh, you mean this thing? That's a good question. So my carbon paper came with a whole set of these, and they're just different thicknesses. So if you have like thicker lettering or something, the thicker the tip on there, obviously the thicker your tracing is going to be. And so then like this one is really thin. So you can see the difference between a really thin one and a really thick one. So you're just gonna pick one that you feel like kind of matches your design. So, and also the real thin ones, it might be easier to poke a hole in it, poke a hole in your paper or whatever. So you just would want to be careful with that because it's a little bit more sharp. So there's really no rhyme or reason to it except for just, trying to match it. So, all right. I hope the white will turn out okay. I hope it will cover up the graphite paper since I did the dark colored graphite paper. So this is just a paint pen. It's the Posca. It's a medium tip, which I typically like a finer tip, but that's what I have. And let me just grab my paper plate over here. Move some of my mess to the side. And then I'm just going to make sure that the ink is flowing because I haven't used this white one in a while. So hopefully it hasn't dried up on me. I'll get back to my story too, don't worry. Talking about when we came out of the Garden of Gethsemane. Here it comes. Okay. Okay. So I'm going to do the lettering on the inside first and then do the outer wreath of thorns. Okay. So we came out of the Garden of Gethsemane to get on our bus. And keep in mind, it's very loud. It was towards the end of the day, so it was probably like rush hour traffic. And a man in my group, so it was part of my tour group, he said, looking across the road to the Temple Mount, you have the old city walls there that go into Jerusalem. And then you can see the Temple Mount up there. And it was the eastern side. So the Bible says that Jesus went from the Mount of Olives into Jerusalem on that triumphal entry. So he would have entered on the eastern side. Well, now the eastern gate is sealed up. It is closed. Nobody can go in or out. There was an older, 16th century or maybe longer ago than that, ruler who knew the prophecy that the Messiah, the coming Messiah, would come back into Jerusalem through the eastern gate. And he sealed it up thinking, I'm going to keep him out. I'm going to keep him from being able to get into Jerusalem. And we know that Jesus will one day come and he will enter the city of Jerusalem again. His feet will touch down on the Mount of Olives. That's what the Bible says. And then he will enter the city through the eastern gate. And it's not going to matter that the gate is sealed shut, right? So anyway, that was really cool. But this man in my group said, here, if you think about Passover, all these people were coming in to sacrifice their animals for Passover. And as Jesus was arrested in the Garden of Gethsemane, he would have been taken across the Kidron Valley into the city. He would have been walking across that valley where the blood flows from all those animal sacrifices. Like the lamb, the savior, is coming. And it was just like a cool symbolic thing to think about. Now, obviously, there are no more sacrifices happening on the temple right now, but that Jesus would have actually crossed over that Kidron Valley where that blood was flowing, knowing that he was going to be the final sacrifice, right? Like the one to take away all the sins from all those people. And they were doing their Passover sacrifices, but he was the Passover lamb. It's like really cool to think about. So anyway, I will never forget him saying that because it really resonated with me. But yes, and to think that they think that's going to keep Jesus from returning. I know. I love it. All right. Let me get... So I'm just doing the initial tracing of the lettering here. And then I'm going to go back over it and I'm going to give it those thicker down strokes. So you can take a look at your template. All right, this is the template from the Scripted Faith Collective. So you can see that there are the thinner upstrokes and then the thicker downstrokes. And so that's what we're going to be recreating here. We're just going to come back in here and go back over it to give it a thicker downstroke. Now, one thing you want to make sure, as you're coming down on a curve, you're going to let it merge back in. You do not want the bottom to be really thick. So a lot of times I see people get real thick right here at that bottom bowl where it the thick part comes down and then it starts to go back up. So when you're doing your lettering, come straight down, but don't fall into the temptation of letting it get thicker on the way back up. Okay. That's just like one of those little things that I notice people do. And sometimes I still do it because my pen hits weird. Or, I'm not paying attention, or it just kind of happens. But that's something to think about whenever you see calligraphy. It is that downward motion and then not the upward motion. So when there's a curvy letter, it's kind of hard to figure out, well, where does the thick part stop? So let me show you with the F. Let's see, can I zoom in anymore? No, I'm zoomed in all the way. All right, so we're going to come down. And I just went over it just a little bit. And now I'm going to come into the inside to give it some thickness. And I'm going to let it kind of like merge. So right at the bottom, it hits and it stops. I'm not going to continue making it thick all the way around or even around partially. Okay. And then for here, I'm just going to try and trace my initial thin line. I'm also trying to cover up that dark graphite paper. And this white really does pop. Finished. When you're doing this faux calligraphy, you're going to come on really like both sides of the letter. Just gauge how much space you have between your letters, and that will help you kind of determine if you need to go more on the left or the right to add the thickness in. And if it feels like the white is just a little too transparent and you want to thicken it up, you can always do another coat. Just, you may want to wait for it to dry. That's the hardest part, right? Is like we're ready to go on to the next part and to finish it completely. And when we have to wait, that's not fun. But you'll be happier with your results if you do. My paint on my background is still wet, and so I feel my paint pen kind of sticking to it just a little bit. It's like kind of like, you know, or it doesn't want to go all down all the way. So, okay. All right, so there's the lettering, and then let's do our crown of thorns. This could be a little less, you know, you don't have to be as precise so much with this part. And I started to color in the thorns when I was doing the design, but I didn't like it. So you might choose to color in the thorns. It might look a little bit different here with a colored version rather than the black and white template, you know, but to color in all those, it was a little bit too dark and heavy. So, or maybe you just decide that you want to color in some of them, you know. My pen here is pretty thick. So with some of the thinner ones, it's a little actually hard to not color it in. So those little ones really are just like a little notch there. I almost canceled the live this week since my husband is recovering. I just almost was like, oh, I'll just cancel my live since you're home and I have to help you. And he goes, no, just do it anyway, because I was so like excited about this project. I really wanted to do it with you, but I knew it wouldn't really maybe make sense to do it next week, you know, after Easter. And so he said, no, go ahead and go do it. So I was glad about that. I don't know if you can see all these thorns because they did transfer a little bit lightly. And some of them kind of cross over each other like that. I feel like I missed some over here. There's definitely one on this side that I missed. And I forgot to transfer the little dots. You see there's like some little dots there. So we'll just freehand those in. But don't forget the little emphasis lines there. All right, so now we can add in some more details with the white. And now you can use the paint pen. You might prefer to do that, or you can use the paint. I do still have some wet paint over here on my paper plate. So I know that I want to do the dots, but let's see. I also have this thinner paint pen, you know, that you could have used. You could use like a thinner one for those thorns. So let's go ahead and do some dots. because I really do love how dots are such a simple thing, but they really add a nice touch. So we're just going to go all the way around. There we go. And then I'd kind of like to add a little bit of white paint to the background, just like some little things. And you could even do like lines, like let's see, like if we just wanted to do some lines like this. You could even do them like sideways. And then we could do a little bit of a paint splotch too. Let's see. Let me get a smaller paintbrush for that. Just clean it. It's got green on it, so let's just clean that off real quick. And then I'm going to go very, very lightly. I'm not going to get very much paint on there at all. But I want the white to kind of pop. And almost be kind of faded. I'll just use the white to fix that mistake down here. And then I think I could even use it to cover up the graphite smudge there. So that kind of helps take away from some of that, like, whoa, like, whoa, the color. It helps to subdue it just a little bit. I'm going to do a little bit over this big pink one too. And you don't always have to go up and down, like from bottom to top like I'm doing. You could go sideways even. I didn't do very many sideways ones. But that just gives it another kind of textured look to it. So you can do as much as you want till you feel like it looks good. So, all right, what else can we do? Should we color in some of the thorns? This thinner paint pen is a little bit more opaque. Maybe just like hit a few of them as you go around. Just like pick a few that you could color in a little bit. And do some dots because it doesn't want to. So here's a trick. If your paint pen isn't wanting to swipe and it's kind of like not coming out, then you could do some dots and then move that paint around. But the dots seems to sometimes work. To fill that in. Mine isn't working because I think the paint in the background is still just sticky. It's kind of tacky, so. All right, and so here's what I want to do. I'm going to show you up close. You can kind of still see some of the graphite lines peeking out. I'm going to let it dry just a bit. I'm a little bit afraid. I don't want to erase those. Sometimes you can actually get away with erasing some of those lines. I don't know that I could do that with this, but I think I can just come back over it a little. I think this design lends itself to a more like a textured look, Okay, but that thin tip was not doing what I want it to do, so let's just use this one. I'm just going to go and thicken that up and just make sure that my graphite lines are covered as best as possible, and even like give a second coat to the white because it kind of looks too transparent. It's not popping off enough. So I really do want that to pop off a little bit more. But it can be tricky with the white paint pen. It can just be kind of streaky. You know, the white tends to do that a little bit more than the black. There we go. As long as I feel like the black lines are covered up, I don't mind the streakiness as much. Just really want it to pop off. So, okay, let me show you on the other camera. Here, I'll switch the view for you. There we go. All right, so there we go. What do you think about that background? It's fun. And I'll be honest that I was like, oh, should I make the words "it is finished" on a fun background? That kind of feels like it's not somber enough. Like, I don't know if that's appropriate, but these words are full of hope, right? Like Jesus was declaring, it is finished. My work is done. It is settled. It is, the sins are paid for. It was his final words on the cross. And then we know we have the hope of the resurrection that comes after this. So these words, it is finished, for the Christian should be hopeful and should just make us thankful that Jesus was resurrected on the third day, that he lives, that he has saved us. If you don't know Jesus and you don't know what I'm talking about with the power of the salvation, Jesus was a perfect Son of God, and he came to earth because he was going to be the sacrifice for your sins. And he laid down his what's the word? Like, he didn't lay down his deity. That word almost came out of my mouth, and that is not true, because Jesus was fully God and fully man all together. It's very hard for us as humans to maybe understand that. But he came, he lived a sinless life, and then he went to the cross to pay, because they had to make blood sacrifices for their sins to try and atone for their sins. And Jesus came, and he was the last sacrifice. And the book of Hebrews says that he is the perfect sacrifice. And so then he was risen. He raised on the third day, on the Sunday, which is what we're celebrating this Sunday. And he said that he was going back to heaven to prepare a place for us, and sent the Holy Spirit to live in us, but we can have forgiveness for our sins. And there's nothing too bad that you could do that Jesus would not forgive you for your sins. And so he made the way for us to know God and to have a personal relationship. We have a personal relationship with Jesus. And so when he said it is finished, he meant his work on earth was done. And now he lives with God in heaven, and he's preparing a place for us to be with him in eternity. When we pass from this earth, we can be resurrected with him and live eternally with him. So anyway, that is why we have the hope, and that is why we celebrate Easter. We don't celebrate just bunnies and rabbits and the Easter bunny and all that. We celebrate, this is the reason for Easter. So anyway, I hope you've enjoyed this project. It was different and it was fun, and I would love to do more like this with you in the future if you've enjoyed this too. This was a template from the Scripted Faith Collective. If you're not a subscriber, you can check out in the link in the comments how you can be a subscriber and what you get. But you get really cool templates like this that you can make some of your own projects and do lettering, even if you have never done lettering before. So that's what that is. This is one we did a few weeks ago. But I hope you have a wonderful Easter weekend with your family, celebrating Jesus, being so thankful for that. I'm so thankful for you for being here, for following along. You just don't even know how much it means that you come on here and you chat and you put your comments. So with that, I will say goodbye until next week, and I will see you then. Bye.